Good evening. Do I have an update for you? Tonight, I have an update in the Delphi case concerning Richard Allen because they have finally unsealed an affidavit. And they released it on Tuesday of this week after multiple different news agencies filed motions to release it. According to Judge Francis Gull, they found that public interest is not served by prohibiting access to the evidence of the murders, and now here we have our probable cause affidavit. Now, it does seem that there's quite a bit redacted in this affidavit, but that is mainly to protect witness safety. But it still leaves us with so much information, and I'm honestly shocked that they released this much information. So let's get into this very interesting affidavit. So right off the top, I'm going to say that this affidavit shows how Richard Allen was linked to the murders of Libby and Abby, which in my opinion is huge. According to the affidavit, investigators found an ejected .40 caliber shell, and it was found inches away from their bodies. They ended up running the shell for analysis, and it actually ended up coming back registered to Richard Allen. It turns out he had purchased this gun back in 2001. Now, I don't know why it took them so long to run this analysis and end up arresting him, but clearly it must not have been done that long ago, because it turns out Richard voluntarily came into the Indiana State Police Post on October 26th of 2022. During the interview, when he was asked about his weapon, Richard insisted he had never let anyone borrow his gun before and no one else has ever used it to his knowledge, but he also states that he has no idea how that shell casing ended up by their bodies. Richard also denied during these interviews being on the property where the two girls' bodies were found, and he also denies knowing the property owner. And that kind of backtracks, because it then says during a search warrant that was executed at Allen's home on October 13th of 2022, officers found knives and guns, including I'm gonna butcher this, so just take it as it is, a Sig Sauer model P226 .40 caliber pistol. That .40 caliber pistol that they ended up matching with the shell casing to Richard. The affidavit also confirmed that the girls were found 0.2 miles northeast of Monon High Bridge, and their bodies were discovered on the north bank of Deer Creek. It's also believed that Libby and Abby were dropped off across from the Mears farm at 1:49 p.m. thanks to video surveillance captured from the Hoosier Harvest store. This is where things get upsetting, because they would only be 24 minutes later, after they were dropped off at 2:13 p.m., that Snapchat video that was filmed on Libby's phone shows that they're encountered by a male subject on the southeast portion of the bridge. It was honestly tough to read that, and to say it out loud is also tough, because that means that Libby and Abby weren't even out there having fun that day for less than half an hour before allegedly Richard Allen confronted them. It then goes on to give us a lot more information on that Snapchat video that everyone's had questions about. The video recovered from Libby's phone shows Abby walking along the bridge as a male subject wearing a dark jacket and jeans walks behind her. As the male subject approaches them, one of the girls mentions a gun, that very gun that is alleged to have been used. Near the end of the video, the male is seen and heard ordering the girls, from the clip that we end up all knowing, and I quote, "Guys, down the hill." The girls proceed down the hill and the video ends. Now, I have seen mentioned before or speculated that there's more video footage, but according to this affidavit, the video ends there. There's no other mention of another video, so I'm not sure. Okay, things get tougher when we learn that clothes belonging to the girls were also found south of where their bodies were discovered in the river. That leads me to wonder if he possibly made them strip. I'm really hoping that's not true, but they did find articles of their clothing down the river from where their bodies were found. So I don't know which articles of clothing, how much. It's not mentioned if they were naked or if they were missing clothing or not. So on top of that, it also doesn't confirm how they were killed, although the fact that they found a gun shell casing near their bodies, there's the talk of the gun, it really leads me to wonder if they were shot. And I think all of this also answers the question of how everyone has speculated how one man can control two girls. Clearly, he had the gun. A gun can control multiple people, so that kind of answers all of those questions for me, at least. It then goes on to say that Allen told police that in 2017, he'd been on the trails east of Delphi between 1:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. the day the girls were killed. This next part of the affidavit blew my mind, because according to the affidavit, Richard Allen was interviewed way back in 2017 when the murders first took place. In this interview, this officer says that Richard admits walking from the Freedom Bridge to Monon High Bridge. He says he didn't see anybody, although he states he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead. However, he did not pay attention to them. He did not take any photos or videos. So he admitted to being at the bridge during that time frame. And we go back to his interview on October 13th. We see that Richard admits during this interview that he was walking along Monon High Bridge, and he states that he went to the bridge to watch fish. Later in a statement, he said he walked out to the first platform on the bridge. He states he then walked back, sat on a bench on the trail, and then left. He stated he parked his car on the side of an old building. Wow, this is just looking at this. I am shocked that he admitted any of this. He also admits that he parked his 2016 Ford Focus in the parking lot of the Old Farm Bureau building, but police indicated in the affidavit that they believe he meant the Old Child Protection Service building. And I quote, he again admitted that he was on the trail but denied knowing victim 1 or victim 2 and denied any involvement in their murders. Now, if you know about this case, you would remember that there were reports of people seeing a car parked in an abandoned building parking lot, and that was nearby where the bridge was. And this was looked into, but nothing came about of it until now. And it's wild to me going through this affidavit because everything just seems to be lining up very perfectly. Now, the next thing in this affidavit, it reveals a lot of witnesses that I personally haven't seen or heard of before, and they talk about seeing a man on the trail that day. One of those witnesses described passing a man along the trail who wore a blue-colored jacket and blue jeans and was quote-unquote muddy and bloody. She further states that it appears he had gotten into a fight. Another witness recalls the man being, and I quote, not very tall, saying he was not bigger than 5'10" and had a bigger build and had his hands in his pockets, which sounds very eerily like the man in the Snapchat videos. On top of that, Richard Allen told investigators on October 13th of 2022 that he wore jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket that day, according to the probable cause affidavit. Allen's wife also confirmed to police that he owns a blue Carhartt jacket. So all of this again just seems to be just completely lining up. Further witness statements that said 3 witnesses passed a man on the trail and one of the girls in the group said hi to the man. The man then glared at them, according to one of the witnesses. It then goes on to say that investigators believe that after the victims were murdered, Richard Allen returned to his vehicle by walking down Carroll County Road 300 North, over to where his car was parked in that parking lot that police were very suspicious of. So how do you all feel about this new information? Again, I am shocked that this was released so soon, especially considering the trial's not till next year. And it seemed like the actual prosecution didn't want this released, but the news organizations petitioned to have it released. And hearing all of this now and reading through all of this, however, does make me understand why police didn't release this information sooner. It really did protect the integrity of the case, and I said it in my original videos that I applaud this police department because they seem to have done really great work in catching Richard Allen, allegedly innocent until proven guilty. And I say that because everyone was so upset about them not releasing more information, not releasing more of that Snapchat video. But it seems like they couldn't release more of that Snapchat video because of that gun comment. That's kind of the only piece that we didn't get out of that Snapchat video, it seems like, and that was the most important part of it because the mention of that gun, that shell casing, all of that led to Richard Allen. Again, I'm not sure why it took them so long to process that. I know it takes a long time to process evidence sometimes, but you think they would have pushed that faster. I'm very glad that he's been caught, but he still needs to be prosecuted. So I will have some articles linked down below that discuss the affidavit. I'll also have the affidavit linked down below if you want to read it yourself. There is a lot more information in there. I just didn't think it was as interesting as the stuff I talked about tonight. A lot of it was just kind of fine details and recounting stuff. It wasn't new information that we didn't know. And honestly, now that I go through all of this, I don't know if I believe that there's a second killer. I still don't know why they'd be keeping the lines open if they didn't think there was more that could be brought into this case. Hearing that a gun was used, it kind of solidifies to me, and it answers my question of how 2 girls could be controlled with 1 killer. I'm swaying more towards there not being another killer or another person involved, but you never know. And on top of that, there's nothing mentioned in the affidavit of them suspecting someone else being involved. So to me, this seems all pretty solid. But what do you all think? Do you still think there's potentially more people involved in this? I mean, there are the whole thing with that, P ring. So I don't know. let's have a chat about this down below. How do you feel about all of this new information? Does it clear a lot of your questions up? Do you still have more questions? If you do, I want to have a conversation about them below. But yeah, if you're not subscribed, I definitely recommend you hitting that subscribe button and turning on the notification bell, because I will continue to bring you updates as they come out. And it also does help me out a lot to be able to continue to create videos like this for you all and share these stories, spread this information. I am currently working on some more cases on the Idaho student murder, so if you're interested in that as well, I have a timeline video on that already, so I recommend checking that out, and I'm going to be putting some more content out towards that as well. But yeah, this is great information. Clears up my questions. I want to hear how you all feel about it though. I hope you have a great rest of your night. You stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.